breakfast, or it is not breakfast for you. Hello, everyone. This is BetaCodex Live. I'm Rijon Erickson. This is Niels Pflaeging, enjoying this is 3 p.m. afternoon yogurt. You mentioned the brand of yogurt before, so this is
it's Icelandic skyr.
Icelandic skyr.
And skyr is much healthier than yogurt, and this is the best skyr in the world. But it's like the Icelandic yogurt.
Only the best. Only the best.
It's really cool. Really good stuff.
And I think is only the best can only mean that we are celebrating today. We are celebrating our 50th episode of BetaCodex Live, which is almost. I would, if I had a soundboard, I would go something like a fanfare of some sort. But I don't have one. And today, I was a little bit cagey about the topic in general. I was very minimalist about the title. Just decentralize, repeat, and back to basics, because I think at this point we've gone through a lot of topics in a lot of different ways, and I feel like it would be well served to go back to why is this important? Why does beta really matter? And because that I think is key to us doing this and being out there in the world about it. So I had a couple items I could share first. Unless you would like to say welcome to the Betaverse on the 50th episode anniversary.
I'm happy that we made it until number 50, and now I'm looking forward to number 100.
Oof. Oh wow.
Right? So 100. Yeah, let's do it. I'm curious about your topics, the topics you brought with you today.
Well, the topic, the first one actually is the most recent one that came to me, was about fearlessness. And I think because it's recent, because we did Fear is the Mind Killer and all this kind of stuff, and an organization that the kinds of organizations we're talking about inviting into the world and creating of our own we'll talk about design later, but that an organization built on fear is, I wish to have no part of that. That is, it's antithetical, I believe, to what people in relationship doing stuff together for other people should be about. That the coercion and fear, that's at the basis of this. And so beyond fearlessness, there was a theme that has come up many times about, what do you believe about human nature? Do you believe in the capability and capacity of people to do for themselves and with others? Or do you believe that people require punishment and coercion to do that? And this idea of learned helplessness came, and we talked about that a few times. Like, okay, so what is being taught, and how does that happen? What is the soup in the water that people are swimming in that cause them, as they either rise from their education to manage and lead, if it taught that that's a good thing, and that to be, I'm a helper. You learn to look for help. You learn to look upward to authority. That those patterns, that for me, when I finally realized how different the BetaCodex was, that the beta way of thinking was, all of these flips happened with me, and this idea of helplessness versus agency, and this idea of being in relationship and honest, and instead of seeking authority to adjudicate your issues, the conflicts, that you are with each other. This is the social density thing that has come back. So all of these patterns for me, and this is my first salvo to you, and then to invite you, what came up inside you when you first entered into this space, was all about people taking control of themselves and self-control and command of themselves, and being not helpless, not fearful, but intentional and with design. And so that to me, just especially in a personal context, at the time in my life when I was coming out of a few years with cancer, where I had all of my agency taken away effectively by being hospitalized.
Yes.
And then I came out and I said, I do not wish to be ordered around or deferent without reason or cause or my choice. This is my choice. And I wish to travel that way with others who want to travel that way in organization, in business, and in being. So that is my first riff, if you will, on why I care about this and why I'm here.
Thank you for sharing that.
You're quite welcome. Would you like to share spontaneously for you, or are you curious about the invitation I want to provide?
Yes. I'm curious about the invitation. Yes.
My curiosity for you, and I would invite you to say, in your experience, there was a time before you joined the Beyond Budgeting Roundtable, and there was a time before you were aware of organizational life that was different. What was it about the beta way of thinking, being, and doing that really inspired you to want to take the route that you've taken since pre-1998?
That's a great question. I'm not sure if I still know what I felt or thought that at the time. Because, but sure, at the time I was a finance person, a finance manager, corporate controller. So I was seeking my immediate interest was to improve performance systems, right? And improve planning and reporting and budgeting. And when I found out about the Beyond Budgeting work, which later evolved, and then later again we refined it more and turned it into the BetaCodex, I thought it was a liberating experience to see this philosophy of not steering, of not commanding, of not coercing. So to see an alternative of organizational life, as you just call it, organizational models, the possibility of it, I found that absolutely thrilling. That there were companies that were totally different. Not that I, let's say, already understood all the consequences of decentralization at the time, but that was the immediate realization that organizations could have a totally different way of logic and philosophy and stance at organizing. That was very thrilling and refreshing, yes. But it's hard for me to look back that much, because that, to me, that happened in like the year 2000 or something, that realization that there was an alternative, this first knowledge on Beyond Budgeting. I think that came to me in 2000, 2001. So a very, very long time ago.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to
I understand, because even for me, having been really only a few years into this, it's kind of hard for me to explain, well, why is this important? Why so Ryan, talking to him. So Ryan, why should I change the way I what are you talking about? Why would I want that? Because I'm doing well. So go ahead.
Are we doing well? I don't think so. I think we're not doing well. And I think there is this level of what I just explained. I think that was my immediate experience and my immediate my personal my longing for improvement and so on of my job or my work or the work at the company and so on, or improving the company. But there is a long-term interest, I think, that is. I just thought about this, coming here today and before I joined the session with you. I think the long-term thing is preserving and improving democracy. So there is something way beyond organizations and work that matters. Of course, we have to drive out learned helplessness from work and organizations. Of course, we want, as an agilist, for example, which you have been, we want to improve software development. As a finance manager,
reluctant agilist, right?
When I was a finance manager, I wanted to improve finance management and performance management and that kind of stuff. My work, our work, our organization, all these things are valid points. But in the long term, I think this is about confronting tyranny and preserving and fostering democracy. Because, of course, we cannot sustain democracies returning to authoritarian, patriarchic workplaces every day. It will not end up. It will not go well. We cannot afford schools to be sustaining authoritarian mindsets, and we cannot afford organizations to sustain authoritarian thinking and patterns of behavior. So yeah, there is a long-term, sometimes maybe less obvious perspective, which is why I also enjoy the power of the BetaCodex, which is why I've never, I do not see a reason to go beyond beta, because I think beta covers it pretty much all, all the thinking that's necessary to sustain and foster democracy. It's in the BetaCodex for organizations, at least.
Well, and organization, why it's almost even too small of a frame to say just business organizations, value delivery organizations, market-based, market-driven organizations. Yes. That, and as I have come to know the principles better, the knowledge of them, and attempting to apply them to what I see in the world, that there, in any kind of community where you have people together attempting to govern a sphere of activity to produce something for other people in a democratic way that is respectful of each individual, that is respectful of the needs of the whole as well. There's a Star Trek 2 quote in there, or there's something like the needs of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. I think that was a Spock quote, but this idea that what I came to, and this will come back, I promise. I'm not going to go fly off into the space again. But when you mentioned about, you went right into democracy, and I thought, well, when I try and explain the BetaCodex to folks, if they ask, they're curious, that it's sometimes a challenge because it can get so big, so quick, in terms of, we're talking not only about decentralization and small teams being in control, without budgets, without control from the top down, without this idea of dependency on others to control, this authoritarian relationship, the idea of leaders being, I don't need to be led, nor do I wish to be. And this, so thinking democracy as a whole writ large, and like, with, I say, I'm like, you can even see right now, I'm trying to say, what is the core? What is the one thing I would want someone to know about the BetaCodex? If I were to say, Ryan, what's the one reason you care about this so much? And they were like, I tried to do this the other day. Literally, I did. And I got like 4 or 5 pages of each way of thinking about it. And so I landed at, it was about what we just talked about recently, about what do you believe about human nature? What do you, at your core, do you believe that people need to be controlled from the outside, or that each individual is capable, and through just their being as a human being, capable and able to have agency and self-control, as opposed to external control? That's what it came down to me, is that each individual has that power and right to share that power and be in relationship with others in accordance with that. So
That's very well put. Yeah, that's one angle too. The deserving nature of humans makes everybody fit for beta, and everybody deserves beta, right? However, there is an incredible there are several barriers. I mean, it's not that we always repeat that mantra, right? Everybody is a theory Y person, and everybody deserves beta. However, there are at least two limiting factors. I think there's an incredible amount of stupidity around in this world. Stupidity is a thing, sadly, and also there's an incredible amount of assholes around. Let me give an example that I think
lazy, ignorant assholes. Okay, how about that?
Yes, I mean, for every Elon Musk, there are a million Elon Musk fans, right? The guy is. There is this horrible word swearing word about other people that starts with C and ends with "unt," and Elon Musk is probably such a person, but that's not the worst. The worst is that there are people who worship him, who give into tyranny, in the words of Timothy Snyder, a great author, I think, very helpful author in our topic. So for every Trump, who is another one of these abominable people, there are so many admirers, and that's so terrific and so terrible. And of course, in Germany, I just mentioned 2 Americans, but I could mention Germany.
And we could mention examples all over the world.
All over the world, and in every sphere, business, politics,
yes, government, and certainly
But so how? But so there are huge barriers to beta transformation, as we would call it, right? To creating democratic civic organization, self-organization, and that stuff, decentralization. There are huge barriers, but it's not human nature. The barrier is not human nature. The barrier is that there are assholes. There's learned helplessness. There's all kinds of giving into tyranny. Again, we should discuss Timothy Snyder in a separate episode here. I think we should do that. We should both read the book, maybe invite a guest. Silke is a big fan as well.
Yeah, I've not read the book, so
yeah, you should. It's very short, very crisp. It's worth it. I can send you a copy if you like. Have you sent a copy? It's a terrific book because the problem is that if we give in to hopelessness and learned helplessness and tyranny and tyrants, and then of course we are all doomed. Our societies are doomed, and our organizations are doomed as well. So beta is a recipe for undooming organizations. Beta is the code.
Undooming
doesn't exist, right? Beta is the anti-tyrannical organization. That's why every time I get the thing, but couldn't we mix alpha and beta? I think like, why would you want to mix tyranny with something decent? That's, why?
That's the thing. We've not ever really used the word tyrant in this. We've talked about tyranny, writ large, at the tyranny of authoritarian structures within, value creation organizations or business organizations, but not about the actual individual, that this focus on the great man, the great hero, that the hero is essentially, if the hero is in control and they are dictating, and the dictator, the tyrant of that word, and
tyrant, maybe.
Well, I don't know about tyrant, benevolent, but we hear the term benevolent dictator, and that just becomes, it's like, why would you want?
That's part of the learned hopelessness. All this leader bullshit, the Simon Sinek admiration. That's all part of bending over to tyranny. Accepting tyranny as a given. Almost, it's a terrible, misleading world. An age of total propaganda. We have mentioned this a couple of times, I think. Yes, we live in an age of total propaganda. It's incredibly easy to fall for the seductive powers of authoritarian thinking, of course. However, you are not innocent. Everybody who votes for Trump is makes herself or himself guilty of, potentially destroying democracy in the United States, or here, if you vote for a party like AfD in Germany.
Yes, and it's bigger than that. Yes, and it's bigger than that. I think there are, for if a person, let's say it is Orange Man, if Orange Man thinks he's on the rule, well, there are folks, Orange Man reports to people too, and there are other kinds of controls that there are groups of people who are globally essentially more powerful than Orange Man or whomever. And the reason I say that is because this is about the belief that there is an individual in control, and that if you believe that individuals should control other individuals, then that, I think, is internalized in terms of also the tyrant has a controller also. I think that because it's a belief that one person should be in control, but does that mean that tyrant thinks they are God above all?
That's an authoritarian idea, right? That one person should be in control. It's
Sure.
always tyrannical, an authoritarian or paternalistic thought. In a democracy, we shall believe that institutions are more powerful than people. Like the American president, sometimes I do not like this, is referred to in media and movies and so on as the most powerful individual in the world. Yeah, but that isn't anything, because institutions are much more powerful, like independent courts, even the media. I mean, and parliaments and so on. Those are institutions. These institutions of a democracy, of course, are supposed to be far more powerful than the individual to counteract, authoritarian forces. All this nonsense about hero leaders, hero CEOs, the Muskish, Elon Muskish philosophy, that's all authoritarian thinking. It's all evil. The Brené Brown brand of hero worshipping.
Well,
it is ultimately a slippery slope to evil. So,
but there's I think there's
and
a
we
bit
don't
of binary. We don't have to,
but
because I think there's a bit of binary thinking there. I mean, just because. Well, I think so, yeah.
Okay.
But I do understand that it's important to draw a distinction between authoritarian behavior and democratic behavior, and that is a systemic and a procedural or a process. Like there's an authoritarian process and there's a democratic process. Now, the structures that support each of those processes, that in my mind and my understanding, that's the system that as an intervention we would work that system, right, to shift the tide from an authoritarian systemic relationship structure to a hopefully purely democratic structure that is. And this is where the talk of democracy gets a bit more nuanced, because we're talking about a representative democracy here in the U.S. with the tricameral balance of powers, and those structures, ostensibly, if they are operating according to their core principles, that there are the balance of powers, that there are people have the authority and control through their representatives to exert their freedom and their rights to citizenship, right? But then we're talking about all sorts of the learned helplessness. Oh, so what? I got a right to vote, but it's not going to make a difference anyway, or all that kind of stuff. And what I'm saying there is that there's a systemic influence, in that there are patterns and programs that folks accept, and that come from the educational system, which is authoritarian, I believe.
No, the system is not authoritarian. That's not go too far.
Well, no, but maybe. So what are you saying? That the system is structured as a
entirely for reform. Let's put that
as an incentive.
Germany is also like that, coincidentally. Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was talking over you. What?
It's not authoritarian. I think that would take it a step too far. The educational system in the United States, it's not authoritarian. It's too authoritarian. Okay, I accept that, but it's not authoritarian in its.
Well, yeah, I suppose that there's too much authoritarian behavior. The systems are constructed in such a way that there's incentivization to achieve positions of high authority, so that one can exert their beliefs upon others in accordance with.
Yeah, and that's too much, as African calls it, of this competition and measuring and testing and bells and whistles. How does he call it? He has these beautiful expressions for that.
oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the words.
The
prizes
for certificate prizes, quests, and little things. Yeah. So there are certainly too many authoritarian patterns. We agree on that. Yeah, you wanted to continue. So there are authoritarian patterns in United States policy or politics and in education.
Yeah, and that's I think the political aspect. It's more we are not a pure democracy. It is not just mob rule and majority rule universally. We because we are a representative democracy in a federal republic of states, local, all this kind of representative democracy. So that's what I was trying to say, is that it is not just mob rule. And when we bring that into an organizational context, it's important to say that we're not voting on every decision, in every team, in every whatever, in every
and that would never work, by the way. It's important to understand that direct democracy cannot work today. It's important to understand the superiority of representative democracies. I think very important. It's very very little understood these days. Sadly, I think there has been a decline in interpreting democracy well. So
I agree with you, and I believe you, but I would like to hear your articulation of why a direct democracy.
Yeah, it's very important, and I'm happy to go a little bit deeper. The problem with direct democracy is, of course, that that would be mob rule, right? Democracy, the power of the majority, or the vote of the majority, or majority voting, is mob rule. It will never produce, let's say, advancement, because the mob, that's why if you ask the majority, you will usually get conservative or reactionary, let's say, decisions. Yes, representative democracy has the clear advantage that you need, that you can promote advancement or progress in a better way. It's the role of politicians as representatives of people to promote certain ideas. If you ask the majority all the time, that's why, for a great example of what this is about is whenever there is on TV, there is a news section or something. We ask people on the street. We ask the average man on the street.
What's the word on the street?
Ricky Gervais rightfully says, you have no clue how dumb the average person is, so don't ask the fucking people on the street. It's just dumb stuff. And of course, you want to show the dumb stuff to everybody because it's funnier, it's more entertaining. You will not show anything intelligent. So that's mob rule as well. Ask the average person on the street about some fucking thing that she or he understands nothing about,
So because I would say that that's an ignorance factor, not ignorance as a judgment that you're ignorant, but that there are folks who are not exposed to the entirety of the information that's available.
Unread, uninformed. And of course, representative democracy is great because we elect people who are willing to, study the details, understand the concepts, develop concepts, understand the communication process and so on. So all of that, I think we have given democracy a bad rep. I'm not saying everyone, I'm not saying in general, you live in the United States, I live in Germany, for example, very different situations. Let's not overgeneralize, but overall, I sense that we have given democracy a bad image, or we have allowed democracy to be criticized unrightfully, unreasonably. And for example, in Germany, we have this phenomenon that people they like to applaud Switzerland for having direct elections on all kinds of stupid stuff, and usually those decisions that come up by directly asking the people about topics, it's usually just 98% of the decisions made like that, they are just reactionary, they are backward looking.
And others would say that behavior, that's just resistance to change.
No, it's not resistance to change. It's a wrong process of communitizing, of socializing things, right? It's flawed. For example, one of the best approaches, I think, to adding more democratic spice to democracy is to have, I'm not sure what the English word is, but to have something like civic councils,
citizen assemblies. I think they're
citizen assemblies. So you invite people randomly and ask them to join a certain council on a certain topic, and once they accept, they together make the decision. And those processes can be facilitated. They are serious. Those who accept the invitation will be serious about the topic. And usually, I've heard quite a lot about those processes here in Germany that have happened. Usually, miraculously, these groups, as diverse as they are, end up agreeing on the topic once they have been formed. Yes. So yes, you need the format, but that's not majority rule. That's not mob rule. It's not stupid direct voting. Of course, we can improve democracies. I mean, whenever I hear about the American voting election system, there's so many flaws in it, so many design flaws. Of course, it should have been changed 100, 200 years ago already. All this winner takes it all design, that you have to register for a party. There's so many flaws, hundreds of flaws. So that's not my point. My point is not to. We should never criticize democracy. We should, improve the technicalities of a specific democracy. Institution-wise, voting-wise. There's so many things.
And iterate on the design of the system. There are, again, as it was designed back in the post-Enlightenment days, in the late 1700s. The ideas of that there could be an amendments to the Constitution, and that the core document can iterate on its design and continue moving the polity towards progress, and what, because times change, people change with the times, technology changes, that in order to, you don't just put the Magna Carta down and say that shall not change, because that's not acknowledging human nature. And that's in so many decisions, like, oh, this is the word, and this is the only word that shall be the word. So
yes,
you say that.
By the way, it's legitimate to ask if the United States should have two chambers. It's totally legitimate. You can question so many things. I think it's obsolete to have two chambers, and of course the role of a president or a chancellor in Germany can be changed. All that is reasonable, So there are 100 things to improve, for a democracy to go with the times, evolve with the times. Of course. Should that make us say that our politicians are the problem or democracy is a problem? Of course, never.
Never. So here's the thing again. What has happened, and I think, and you bring Orange Man into it, that there are assholes who end up in positions of power.
Yes,
right.
And of course,
that happens at every level of government. That folks who buy into this. Hey, I can be the ruler. I can be an authoritarian person. I have enough charisma, and I can persuade, I can manipulate people to elect me into office so that I can make decisions. I can cajole them into believing that the decision benefits them when it benefits me. So this is assholes that understand the system, can navigate the system effectively, and end up in positions of power. So this is, I think part of this is, as a citizenry goes to sleep on the watch, who watches the watchman, right? And that those of us, that's the goal, that's the design, that's how the system was designed. That each of us have a responsibility to exercise our freedoms and be citizens, and it has happened less and less, which is part of why I'm so frustrated with the Americans and the systems of government here. So, and that's a quandary that I have.
That's an uncivic behavior.
Well, but no, frustration with the idea. Well, if we think about Peter Block, I was going to bring Peter Block into it, and that the way of, because what are we talking about? We are talking about becoming members of a society, citizens of a community, and that the core book of community. And we talk about, I always forget all six of the conversations, about invitation, possibilities, commitment, and then dissent, right? Dissent is a part of it, and that's kind of where I wanted to stop, because I forget the one that comes before gifts, the 5 one. But if there is dissent, that
Yes.
then you have the possibility for, again, Mary Parker Follett, who if you don't say the BetaCodex, you don't get Follettian thinking. If you don't care about the she's a footnote in most business schools, right? So then if we think about integration, unity as opposed to uniformity, well, what's the difference between those things? If you make the distinction between unity and uniformity and integration versus consensus, if you don't make those distinctions, it becomes blurry, and then the asshole vulnerability gets exploited. And that's so to be a force for dissent, I think that's a citizen's responsibility to speak up for dissent, and to be, and again, if you've never watched 12 Angry Men, again, which was brought into the BetaCodex masterclass, which was a wonderful introduction to say, you want to talk about democracy? This is what democracy looks like. If someone's standing up for justice, it's like, well, let us think about this and think together and think bravely and courageously about, well, what are you really saying and why are you saying that? And to accept that responsibility of where we have been delegated, or whatever, however you want to put that. We have a responsibility to respect the laws of the land and justice, and to make sure that each person is treated justly. So that's the principle. That's
Very
the so
glorious. Yes.
And so then this is us, we've been talking for a half hour already. We got basically through democracy. So
I think you asked why all that. Why the focus on decentralization? Why why is beta so precious? By the way, I just went to Timothy Snyder's X account, Twitter account, and at the top he says something very beautiful. Democracy is precious and exceptional. That's the first tweet I see here on his page. Right? Democracy is precious and exceptional, and I think that is a very, very rich insight, to understand that beta is precious and exceptional. It shouldn't be exceptional, of course. It should be the norm, the standard. However, at this moment, to create a beta organization is something incredibly precious, powerful, to change the world, to unhinge, authoritarian thinking, and so. Yeah, we must protect democracy. We must produce it, and on an organizational level, simply beta is the expression of democracy. I cannot. Sorry that I keep repeating this.
But again,
that's the value. There's a business value too. But that's the let's say the value of the value.
And we've barely talked about perform. I mean, you came into this from a performance aspect.
Sure.
That performance could be unleashed if you get rid of the ridiculous controls from top down, folks thinking they know everything when they actually know very little, if they don't respect the wisdom of the mastery in the periphery. And again, we're speaking beta. We're speaking that language because you've been a great teacher to me in that, and I've desired to know it. And then we're talking about center and periphery, and like, what are you talking about? You're not talking about the top and the bottom of the organization. That makes me cringe now when I hear people talk about that. So thank you very little for opening my eyes to that. I think where I was gonna go. So, oh crap! I figured that you got me going on the democracy.
Sorry.
So democracy, decentralization, performance, exceptional performance, self-organization, that was another huge thing for me coming into it. Well, why wouldn't we want to be self-organized? And what self-organization has, you have a responsibility to show up with your mastery and speak, and not just, oh, we're just going to be, well, whatever, we don't have to do anything, we have no standards, no nothing, blah blah blah. No, that is not what it is about. And
self-organization is not anarchy, simply, right? It's not anarchy, and not do whatever you like or do whatever I like. Yeah, self-organization means empowering a team and not empowering individuals. Yeah, that's very essential insight that cannot be over-accentuated. Self-organization, when we talk about organizations, right, means teams self-organizing, gaining autonomy, which is combining freedom and responsibility again. Yeah.
So, and this also gets me into circa 2016 or so, or 2015, whenever the words "organize for complexity" came into your head, about why would you entitle that book "Organize for Complexity"? Well, I'm going to make an assertion here about that. Well, an authoritarian structure is unfit for complexity because again, we're talking about complex markets, as the Taylor bathtub, again, another beta term that people don't necessarily know, that is we have the responsibility to bring that education out, but that the arc of the complicatedness, that markets could accept complicatedness in how goods and services were delivered, only up until a certain point where the complicatedness is not fit to solve the challenges of a global economy. And then well, oh crap. Well, in how does an organization where one has a level of control over the design of that organization, how does one say, okay, I have a legal responsibility as a top manager of an organization to say, we are not going to succeed financially. We are going to die if our company does not address the complexity of the market. So how best to do that, right? And so I'm wondering, in your mind, when you named the book, and how did you come about that? And because I think that gave a lot of juice to the movement, and to that the idea that the decentralized organization is so much more fit for the world as it is today. However, folks believe in faulty models of complexity, there's no debate that there is complexity, and that organizations must be structured differently in order to survive and thrive. So, rewinding that's a big riff to invite you to say, how did Organize for Complexity come up in your thinking?
And that was, by the way, that was exactly 10 years ago. I published the book 10 years ago, the end of 2014.
2014. Oh my gosh. Yikes.
Yeah.
Totally off on the year.
And it was my first book to be published in English. My other 3 previous books, they were never translated into English, sadly. I think I would still like to see it in English. Maybe we can make it happen at some point. A new edition, of course. So yes, Organize for Complexity. That was, not sure if I already told this ever told this to you, but at a certain point, Circus said, "Niels, you are old now. You are more than 40 years old. You have to stop being a rebel and being against everything. Be on budgeting and be on no fixed targets and so on. You have to be for something. You have to be advocating something positive. So yeah, we discussed this." Back and forth, Circle and I, and then we got to this. Okay, complexity. It's all related to complexity. Sure, that's why not to advocate complexity? And that was the idea for the title: to organize for complexity. Instead of and it was really, for me, that was a game changer, a mind blowing insight. To as I wasn't such a young man anymore, to be advocating for something and not against things. To start advocating organizational complexity and aliveness and musicianship, as you call it, and to advocate a positive science, instead of that's also why the name Beyond Budgeting was also always a terrible brand. Beta is already much more positive in that sense, that it aspires to perpetuating organizations, making organizations perpetually alive.
Yeah, there's a becoming there's this kind
Exactly.
of a verb that instead of killing something dead, complicated, because the complicated
That's why we made an
dead.
episode. That's why there is no status quo. That's why organizations never get done. That's why organizational development is not. It doesn't sustain itself. You always have to keep working organizations. We discussed all these matters in several podcast episodes. But yeah, that was a key insight for me, as a professional as well, as an advocate for beta organizations, to say, okay, let's talk about complexity, baby.
Let's talk about complexity. Yeah,
exactly. There's a syllable too much. Yeah, but yeah,
if beta is love, let's talk about love, baby.
Exactly. Beta certainly is love. Yes. Yeah. Certainly.
Yeah.
Beta certainly is love, and it's about aliveness, and it is about people without trying to work on people. It's of course the kind of systems thinking we advocate is also totally about making people's lives better, totally, but not by improving people or belittling them or coercing them, but by changing the conditions of work.
And again, this is one of those other, I hesitate to say it, but kind of like a bitter pill, is that once you believe that people are not the problem, people are not the problem. It is again, assholes exist.
Yes.
But those are an anomaly, not the root cause of this organizational toxicity that the system as it is designed. And we knew this, that in practitioners of organizational improvement, progress, or however you want to put it, health and moving, that has been known since Deming and amplified from Drucker. That so then why are folks in and I know many OD and HR, human resourcing, I now call it, something instead of resources, whatever, but folks in that profession, that why then once you really believe people are not the problem, then oh crap, my whole identity and my whole personality is built on helping, dealing with problem people instead of a problematic system. Crap. Thanks very little, Niels, for helping me realize that. So
yeah, it's a tough pill to swallow. That's definitely a red pill to swallow.
Yeah. Well, and again,
and of course this seems
the red and the blue here.
Yes, exactly. And of course it seems like a paradox. I mean there are many assholes around, and we should deal with them in a way, but the consequence of assholism should be to get rid of those people, so send them to not to promote them to management rank, or not to make them leaders first. Better not hire them. Right, that's
make him the senior director of breakfast. I think that's what you called it.
So the first thing is not to recruit assholes if possible, and then if you find out that you have recruited an asshole,
so then this comes
separate ways.
And this is interesting that you bring up the story of Silka saying, hey Niels, kind of go this way a little bit with it. Say what you're for. And this actually, and I don't know how your opinion of Buckminster Fuller. I think that's what he had said, is that in order to move along from the past, build something new that will supplant it.
Sure.
And I think that is another one of those things that that all this BS talking about, complexity this, complexity that, and how do you deal with the simple, the complicated, the chaos, all this, the garbage in the BCG chart of the trash that is Cynefin. That okay, all right, complexity is okay. The conversation does not stop there. The conversation becomes, how do we get here?
Of course.
How do we get there? And how do we get there? And that's about the self-organization. That's about, it's an intervention into an organizational structure so that it can thrive in complexity and at complexity, as opposed to hiding from it and attempting to organize for complicatedness. You know that, and so
Yes.
there's another book.
By the way, it's maybe it's worth repeating that 5 or 6 years ago, I started creating these approaches, self-structure design and open space beta, which you have behind in your back, right, on the wall. Open space beta, that's the concept overview there of open space beta, the transformation approach that we created, and at the top, self-structure design, that's the org design approach, the structural approach to beta organizations. Why? One might say, okay, if we had the BetaCodex, why did we even create that? Or isn't that maybe not even in conflict to turn the BetaCodex into approaches like that? And it got me thinking. I personally, it took me a year or 2 or 3 to wrap maybe 5 years even to wrap my head around this, because we had a hard time selling selling the BetaCodex, so to speak, because it's more abstract, right? 12 principles and so on. So we kind of felt that we had to get to a different level of explanation of beta, right? But then there was always the question: okay, how not to make it complicated instead of complex? You know, keep it complex, keep it principled, we wanted to make the BetaCodex more buyable, shoppable in a way. You know, that's self-structure design, of course, is the obvious expression. You have it behind you. You know, the idea that to combine the BetaCodex principles, which are there on the top left, you know, on the poster, top left. Yeah, the BetaCodex principles are there, and then there are more specific principles. They are at the top left, exactly. The 12 principles of the BetaCodex are in that concept again. But then there is an additional set of principles.
Yeah.
11 or something? Or 12 again?
Yeah, there's 12 also.
Also 12. Okay, so we articulated 12 principles that are specific to organizational structure, organizational design, value creation structure, and so on. And then we added a few hints or recommendations as well, you know, to make that's targets. Another concept. So we thought, okay, we have to package the BetaCodex into social technologies, as we call them.
Yeah,
to make that more easy to grasp, you know, easy to take, and to make it clearer that these are alternatives to conventional approaches to, let's say, org design, or to the OKR bullshit. There is an alternative that is relative targets. That's really beta, and that works. And that, this feeble notions of human nature.
Well, and this is a challenge, and this is where I hope to go with whatever emerges next out of this format and forum, is that just in this conversation we're alluding to the 12 core principles, 12 more, and 10 more that is learning this language of progressive performance through relative targets, which it is an articulation. Each of these is an articulation of the 12 core principles. So when you understand that, then okay, if an organization manages through budgets, well, how do we, okay, we have actual to actual comparisons, okay, in the marketplace. Well, how do you do so all this? So there's 12, 24, 35 or 34 principles that my math is not there. There's nice. That. Then there becomes the concept of value creation accounting, right? And then so there's a lot of information there. So that transformation of the information, how does that become knowledge, and how does, through practice and preparation and continued learning and reading and having dialogue with folks about, you don't understand, I don't agree with you, this beta principle is bullshit. Well, let's think about that and have dialogue. That's the information to knowledge, and then this engagement with knowledge to however we say it, we in our shared parlance that is a mastery. And the level of mastery, well, who cares about simple, clear, whatever, that an environment that is static, is stable, can be observed and articulated effectively if there is enough mastery of that environment. Right? So someone with no mastery of a situation, let's say of a market condition, based on someone who has extensive knowledge and mastery of the dynamics of a market, well, that is or I mean, we could even say of integrated circuitry in an iPhone or laptop or whatever, that this is a complex thing. No, it's not. It's a complicated thing, and that level of complicatedness becomes simpler and clearer if one has mastery of that domain.
Knowledge, yes.
Yeah, knowledge of the domain and varying degrees of knowledge, and that is also a process. That is not necessarily a destination. I am now the undisputed master of this domain, master of my domain. If you've ever watched Seinfeld, that has a little ring to it, but it's about this idea of continual motion and progress and learning, not say, I have a certificate and I'm done. I am done with my learning now. Oof. Now that's done.
Yes.
And again, all these, it can be overwhelming to sometimes. It took me a long time to translate the 12 principles so that I could observe them and observe the not that side of it. Okay, so do this. All right, what is the do this? And then there's the not that part. Oh, well, okay. So, and it's okay that takes a long time, because that is new information that one must engage with through curiosity and practice and preparation, which again is one of the principles we talk about.
Yes.
So,
yeah, well put.
All right. Well, I actually have a meeting to talk with some folks about how we might engage with beta consulting here in the land of the free and the home of the brave.
That's wonderful.
At the top of the hour. So I would,
that meeting is today?
Again, that meeting I stupidly scheduled it for right after our session here.
All right, so we have to come to an end. That's okay. I have a topic for the next session. I would like to continue our conversation. It's nice, only if you agree, but we can see. But my suggestion would be to talk about limited rationality in organizations at work, the limits of rationality and the need for rationality. Might be a topic. Not sure. It doesn't make sense to you.
No. The reason I'm saying that reminds me of cybernetics and Stafford Beer and bounded rationality. So
interesting. Reflection.
We can enjoy this. We can talk about this
for this session. We will set it up, but I think that could be a topic. Rationality is, you will hardly ever find rationality in an alpha organization, which is why you should never expect rationality to occur. Like, alpha organizations they just want to make profits. No, that would be rational. But there is little rationality in alpha organizations. Okay, we'll talk about this.
Then we're going to make the distinction between rationality and irrationality within organizations, I guess. So,
that's one thing, else. But yeah, exactly. And what kind of rationality do alpha organizations produce? Yeah, very nice.
So this is again, I look at oh my gosh, we're already talking an hour and we're like this far into it.
And so we will continue next time with the rationality thing. I think that's so nice next step. And so have a great meeting.
Thank you very much. I will schedule some time with you so we can kind of continue this and some other stuff that's going on. Well, wonderful. And I'll end the stream. See you all next week. Have a great one.